the geopolitical landscape has changed, right? So governments everywhere are revising their laws and new regulations are popping up. Data protection, digital sovereignty is something everyone talks about. And here, especially for our customers in the public sector and our regulated customers, it's not business as usual to run on global clouds anymore. It's just no option, right? So while we value our hyperscaler partners, there are some customer segments that need more isolation and have concerns about running on US-based infrastructure.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of our podcast, Unlocking SAP BTP. Today is the episode 126, and we're going to talk about the SAP BTP data center expansion and sovereign cloud strategy. And I'm very happy that I have two guests for today, which is Michael Schmidt and Matthias Rosker. So welcome to both of you to our podcast. I would propose we start with a small round of introduction, that you introduce yourself. And Michael, do you want to start?
Yes, sure. Hey, Niklas. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Schmidt. I'm leading the PlusOne Central Engineering department in SAP. We are responsible for everything development side for SAP Cloud Infrastructure. We're building the cloud infrastructure for SAP and our customers. And recently in focus also, our main mission is like technical sovereignty and independence from the global hyperscalers. My team is currently maintaining a footprint of 15 regions and 29 availability zones for SAP Cloud Infrastructure. We usually join the party once the hardware is racked and stacked and the power is turned on. And once the lights turn on, we handle everything from the bare metal provisioning, building various automation layers, and developing the cloud services on top that both SAP internal teams and recently also external customers are interacting with. Now, you might have heard of SAP Cloud Infrastructure, maybe not. It's not a new platform. We've been operating this for more than 10 years and just recently started offering BTP on SAP Cloud Infrastructure as well. So the platform has been battle tested internally for over 10 years now, and we perfected it for SAP's enterprise workload pretty much. Now, on a personal note, I'm with SAP for more than 20 years now. I started as a consultant developer, but then I became obsessed with infrastructure and coffee. And you might say I'm even a weird coffee person in my real life. But yeah, here we are. How about you, Matthias?
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, Matthias Rosker is my name. Welcome, everyone. I'm heading data center strategy and regional expansion for business technology platform. I'm working in SAP for over 29 years now. And since the last 10 years, I'm working in business technology platform, or formerly known as HANA Cloud Platform, SAP Cloud Platform, now business technology platform. And from the beginning, I basically started there to look at expansion topics. We started out with our offerings in SAP's data centers. Then we moved out to hyperscalers. And as of today, now we finally ended up being close to everywhere. In that context, I'm still looking forward to expand further for business technology platform. We've been landing in many places recently, and that's what we'll talk about here.
Yeah, thank you, Matthias, as well for your introduction. And all the names you mentioned, the podcast had the same history, right? All right. So, last year, when we look at BTP, we've had lots of new data center locations in 2025. So, what has happened? And is it also the plan to continue at this fast pace, Matthias?
Yeah. Actually, it really has been a steep increase in our expansion. Around about 2 years ago, we recognized, and looking at the situation where we were at that stage, that we had a say, a little dispersed and distributed presence of our BTP capabilities globally. We started by that time already spinning out our services into different hyperscalers, into different locations, and spread around the globe. But we did not have a very consistent offering at the time. And at the same time, also, we were seeing an increasing consumption from our and adoption of BTP from our internal cloud solutions. That means we have been growing our cloud portfolio quite a bit with, say, acquisitions, with own developments, and expanded BTP's capabilities broadly. But not all of these capabilities were available really around the globe, so we had a little bit of an imbalance here. At the same time, we were up to accelerate our cloud growth even more compared to previous years. And therefore, it became clear that we need to invest in this presence quite a bit. And we really stood up a program to expand BTP broadly along those different dimensions. On the one hand side, expanding services across all the locations where BTP was offered. And at the same time, also standing up new BTP locations, new BTP regions, as we call them, where either there was customer demand, where we were planning jointly with our partners to expand, but also where our internal cloud solutions were running. And when adopting more and more capabilities from BTP, needed also a local presence. So co-located in the same locations. So what we essentially did was really harmonizing and defining our global location strategy across all cloud solutions with BTP as the foundation, as you see also in our architecture slides. And this BTP is the bottommost layer that obviously then needs to fill and supply the superset of locations. And that is what we try to live up through over the past, say, 2 years roundabout. Along that journey, we have been doing that on our 4 hyperscale cloud partners, on Amazon, on Google, on Microsoft, and on Alibaba Cloud. But we have, as well as Michael lined out, also been expanding BTP presence into our own data centers yet again.
Yeah, thanks for the summary, Matthias. And you already played the ball into the direction of Michael. So why do we now offer BTP on SCI as we have moved away from our own data centers before? When we look back.
Yeah, I think there's actually 2 reasons. And to sum up what Matthias said, first, BTP is becoming the foundation layer for a lot of our cloud solutions. So what we've been seeing internally is there's a lot of demand to BTP alongside of solutions we are hosting on SAP Cloud Infrastructure. And customers, they demanded, right? We need better integration and better performance. We need to run the solutions side by side. And then the second reason is actually what I call the sovereignty shift, as you know, and as we all know, the geopolitical landscape has changed, right? So governments everywhere are revising their laws and new regulations are popping up. Data protection, digital sovereignty is something everyone talks about. And here, especially for our customers in the public sector and our regulated customers, it's not business as usual to run on global clouds anymore. It's just no option, right? So while we value our hyperscaler partners, there are some customer segments that need more isolation and have concerns about running on US-based infrastructure. Right, so moving BTP to SAP Cloud Infrastructure is just the next logical step. And we make a little dent in providing better technical sovereignty. Essentially, what this means for you is that we control the full stack. We have control over the control planes down to the hardware, down to the data centers that belong to SAP. In some cases, even down to the land the data centers are built on.
All right, so you already named the tech, so let's get into the tech stacks then. So what is under the hood of SAP Cloud Infrastructure technically, and do you have ambitions to get the next hyperscaler in the game?
I knew that this question would be coming, and let's address the elephant first, right? We are not trying to be a general purpose provider like AWS. It's very tough competition. So what we are building with SAP Cloud Infrastructure is a bespoke platform specifically made for enterprise workload. And here, of course, specifically made for SAP workload. But technically, what we are running, and now I'm in my department, so it's a combination of Kubernetes and OpenStack. And we are using OpenStack as our infrastructure as a service API for more than 10 years now. It's a quite mature ecosystem, and we've been hatching and maintaining it, refining it, and adding our own spin to it for over a decade now. Now, underneath the foundation, the undercloud, if you want, we are sitting directly on the hardware. So it's all bare metal based. And here we are playing with Kubernetes right from the start. Even before Kubernetes was even generally available, we've been running SAP Cloud Infrastructure on a bare metal Kubernetes. We are dog fooding SAP's own tech stack. So recently, we moved everything from VMware over to Gardener for managed Kubernetes. We are using our own Garden Linux as hypervisor operating system. Our hypervisors are based on KVM, and we are fronting it with a technology called Cloud Hypervisor, which is a virtual machine manager. And interesting tidbit for the uninitiated, the Cyberus Cloud Hypervisor, that variation that we are using, it has an accreditation from the BSI, which is our German security government agency. So it's being allowed to work with restricted data. And in fact, we are currently working to have SAP Cloud Infrastructure accredited for VSNFD. That is German for restricted data, pretty much. And that will be a game changer for our public sector and regulated customers, especially in Germany. Next to the hyperscalers, we're also running open source software for storage. Here we are setting on a technology called Ceph, which we're also running on bare metal Kubernetes as our object store solution. In fact, large parts of the software we are running with is based on something called the Apiro reference architecture, which is a project inside of the IPSIDE SIS initiative. And without going into too much detail what this is, it's an important project of common European interest. It's a government-funded program to bring forward a big word, pan-European cloud infrastructure for Europe. SAP is a central piece of this, and we are using as much as possible here also inside of SAP Cloud Infrastructure. But we are not just consuming that open source. My engineers and our developers, we are actually leading the open source wave for Europe. Through the Linux Foundation Europe, we created our own foundation. It's called the NeoNephos Foundation. And pretty much all the IP we are working on is being donated to the wider European ecosystem.
Yeah, thanks for the deep dive into the tech stack. Sounds like a very robust and scalable stack to me, and I also like that you support open source here. Michael, you already touched a bit on the sovereignty part, so let's address a question in that direction to Matthias then. So we have heard a lot of announcements around that. So what is the direction of BTP in that area?
Yeah, generally looking at the trends that Michael has been outlining, obviously the need for digital sovereignty increases through the drivers of geopolitics, of strategical interest, and the ever increasing importance of digital assets, not only for public sectors and enterprises, but in general. And making an assessment obviously drives many organizations, many countries, many corporations as well, to the observation that sovereignty is an aspect that becomes strategically important. When you take a little deeper look at sovereignty, that splits up into different perspectives. That means not only what you may think of in terms your cloud running in a very specific location that you determine, which you could consider kind of data sovereignty, data being contained within a country, protected by local data protection laws and so forth. But there's additional aspects that you need to consider when you think about sovereignty. The next aspect that you may come to mind is the operational sovereignty. That means people operating your cloud services are an important aspect to the entire independence or the level of independence you can achieve. So if you also have operations localized for a given cloud, that gives you an additional degree of independence from external influences. The third aspect, and that is what Michael has also been alluding to, is the technology being used. So if you're being cut off from technology that is dominated by someone, be it an enterprise or corporation that controls the technology, or be it also, say, country or say local influence from governments on technology, that raises additional risk. So that you also want to definitely take a look that you localize the technology and can control as much of the technology, even in case of crisis, to give you an additional level of protection here. And last but not least, also the legal sovereignty. That means you want to control the or the locations in which legislation is being applied to your services. And all these different aspects you need to consider when designing for sovereign clouds. As the market and the geopolitical evolution basically suggests, that is a topic of increasing relevance and importance for everyone. We also start evolving our solutions here in that regard. That means we are offering more sovereign qualities in our cloud services. It is not exactly a new topic, because we've been starting to deliver sovereign cloud back in, I would say, 2019, maybe 2020, over in the US, where we operated cloud services, at least BTP, for the first time with SAP NS2, a subsidiary that is dedicated to operate cloud service for public sector in the US. And we've been expanding over the past years from there to offer sovereign type deployments also in more countries, like in Canada, in UK, in Australia, and there's more to come. So just following the demands and the additional need for independence and sovereignty here. So that it is really becoming more and more of an strategic pillar for offering cloud services. And that is definitely, say, here to stay.
Okay, yeah. And maybe our listeners already heard about that there's also an on-site sovereign cloud, or they maybe read it in the press or whatever. So what's the difference between the sovereign cloud and the sovereign cloud on-site? So maybe let's start with the sovereign cloud first.
Yeah, sovereign cloud basically is you can consider it kind of a community cloud that is dedicated to those consumers who need that additional level of say compliance, of regulation that basically is provided by these clouds, and or the additional level of independence. However, it is still a shared cloud delivery. So you've got multiple customers sharing a multi-tenant type architecture that to the biggest part initially and over the past years has been run on US cloud, US hyperscale cloud infrastructure. In some locations, like in the US, on a more, say, constrained and restricted version, like the Amazon US Gov Cloud. In other locations, it is just making use of the general hyperscale cloud region that is available in the location, and that is, say, certified for the use cases that we are looking at for sovereign clouds, also for high regulated workloads. That provides the correct level of protection, independence, and so forth, and therefore can still be used for these purposes as well. In contrast here, sovereign cloud on-site creates an additional level of independence. Michael, do you wanna shed some more light on this?
So with sovereign cloud on-site, we take that concept to the next level, one step further. For starters, it's a new product, right? And now we are taking the whole stack and physically bringing it to the customer in their own data centers. So what we're going to do is we are deploying SAP Cloud Infrastructure and the sovereign cloud stack that Matthias just described physically into the customer's own data center. So the customer will provide the facilities. The product is still managed by SAP. We can give more technical, legal, and operational sovereignty by this. By moving the infrastructure on-site, what we can do is we can provide isolated control planes dedicated to a single customer, like single tenant installation. It can still be multi-tenant for the customer, but it's going to be their own tenant. And we can remove all unwanted dependencies on global infrastructure, systems, and tools that we are running. Another powerful aspect of sovereign cloud on-site is that the customers can actually choose the operations model. So depending on the needs, we offer anything from a follow the sun, globally distributed operation teams, or for more security conscious customers, we can even bring locally vetted personnel on site, even with specific nationalities, be it Korean, German, or some countries even require specific security clearances due to regulations. And all of that is possible now with on-site.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for the differentiation between sovereign cloud and sovereign cloud on-site. I think what would help is examples. But before we get into examples, let's refresh our minds and especially the minds of our listeners a bit with a small power break. And as we are recording more or less after lunch, my first question to you is what you had for lunch.
So I had a pragmatic little pot of pasta, just with pesto. So just a quick one in between the meetings. I'm working from my home office, so it has to be quick. It has to be, delivering enough energy for you to sustain for the next hours to come, and to perform well on this podcast.
Yeah, but I hope it was still tasty, even though it was quick.
It was, absolutely.
Very
That
nice.
sounds good. Staying with the Italian vibe, Matthias, I actually didn't have lunch. I had coffee for lunch. I guess I'm looking forward to dinner later. As I said, I'm a weird coffee person. And as a head of the engineering department, I have a fancy espresso machine that is programmable. You can set the temperature, flow, and pressure profiles, even programming down to a very detailed level. And I'm running like turbo shots recently, so very fast shots with a coarse grind. And the coffee I had was from Manhattan Coffee Roasters. It's a small shop, so the advertisement is okay. Single origin washed red Pacamira from Guatemala. I still have a little bit left here for later then.
Very nice. Yeah, but it sounds like you're making rocket science out of coffee. Yeah, but at least when it's good, that's fine.
It's the whole ritual, and
yeah. But I think that's a good approach. So too much people just drinking coffee as a behavior and not really, feeling it as a good or consume it in a good way. Let's phrase it like this. Yeah,
exactly. It's not just it's not just the functional caffeine hit, but also the
Exactly.
ritual and the getting down from work, have a bit of a distraction, and then enjoy a nice juicy cup of coffee.
Sounds nice. And what you do in your free time? What is your most loved hobby to get out of work mode?
At the moment, I'm playing a lot with AI. Behind me, you can't see it. I have a small home lab, and I'm running my own Kubernetes cluster. Call me crazy, and then I'm trying out all these popping up new tools. The speed is insane. You can't keep up. I need more free time in case my boss is listening.
What about you, Matthias?
Yeah, from time to time, whenever I get to it, I enjoy taking digital photos. So I'm a little bit more of the camera tech guy. So I tend to play with new tech on cameras and lenses and so forth. It's just too rare that I find the time to really take it off and have it go out for a shot. But that's usually what I do.
Very nice. Then we can continue the conversation afterwards. I just started to get into this rabbit hole. All right, and then my last question is: what is your most loved drink? Maybe it's coffee for you, Michael. Maybe I should choose another question. Or do you have another most loved drink?
Yeah, I guess it's coffee. I also like tea, mainly black tea. Yeah, actually, anything with coffee is quite good.
Maybe an espresso martini for you then.
That sounds like a plan for later.
Very nice. What about you, Matthias?
In my youth, I actually started out with. I grew up in a beer area, so I've naturally you got to drink beer. But now coming down here to or living close to the Pfalz in Waldorf, actually I grew to like wines more. So I'm rather into red wines, deep, dark, heavy red wines.
I see. And then maybe a small piece of dark chocolate.
If need be, yes.
Okay, very nice. So let's come back to the topic and continue where we stopped. So the differentiation between sovereign cloud and sovereign cloud on-site, and yeah, let's keep on the sovereign cloud on-site. So for which customers will this be as of interest, or do you have example industries or whatever?
Yeah, maybe I take this, Niklas. So I actually do see two customer segments, and we hear this from the field as well. The first of all is customers who have very high data protection standards. Think about national defense or intelligence agencies. These customers often require environments where we are getting into the air-gapped or air-gated territory. Not even telemetry or metadata may leave the physical premises. And for those agencies, on-site is of course interesting. We place the hardware directly in their secure facilities, and it's easier to maintain physical isolation and control what's going on. The second broader group is public sector customers, where we see at the moment a modernization gap, if I can call that. And these customers, they are caught between two opposing forces. For one, they need to modernize their aging systems and they want to move by the cloud, but they are actually either politically mandated or constrained by regulation to move into the cloud. Especially also in Germany, regulation forbids us to use US-based hyperscalers. So these customers are stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? So what should they do? Now, using the on-site model, they can host the infrastructure in their own data centers. We can bring in our SAP software. We have locally vetted and security cleared personnel. And this allows them to innovate and bring BTP in-house without compromising on regulations or national jurisdiction.
All right. So, and then for all the rest, the public option is interesting. Or what kind of example can you share there?
So for public cloud, basically, it becomes more and more interesting for every customer, every SAP customer that basically looks for moving to the cloud, be it for extensions, be it for enhancements and complementary applications that you build, be it for AI or data management. So the key pillars of the BTP offerings. Basically, every customer, over short or long, basically gets to touch BTP or BTP style offerings as part of his journey into the cloud. So whenever a customer moves to RISE with SAP, it typically hits the integration, where also like the on-premise solutions basically then move along to the cloud. And therefore, pretty much along the lines of the RISE journey or the SAP cloud journey as we lined it out, BTP is an essential pillar for this strategy.
Okay, and now let me connect the dots a bit. So we have Sovereign Cloud, we have BTP on SAP Cloud Infrastructure, and we have the BTP on the Hyperscalers. A lot of different data center locations in a lot of different regions, and also deployment models with cloud and on-site version. So we all know we have a big set of services in BTP. What is about the service availability within all these different and diverse regions?
Yeah, I've started out by explaining that we had observed that problem, that we were not as homogeneously available across all those locations and regions. Now, with increasing the number of regions, that obviously becomes even more of a challenging task. What we, however, have been defining is a common strategy that we are striving to have a core set of capabilities out in every of our presences, be it, say, the key capabilities for integration, for extensions, or what you call build today. So building extensions, enhancements, and additions to your existing cloud system. Be it also, say, the core technical capabilities that come underneath, like HANA, like persistence, like runtimes, and so forth, that we are distributing broadly. Not to say, however, we will bring every service in every location everywhere. That is also maybe exaggerated. So we are sticking more to a common core principle, that we have a common set of core services everywhere. And then we obviously have some parts of our portfolio which we rather expand on a needed basis into given locations, so that some parts have a little more conservative expansion strategy, whereas the core and the broadest used services will be generally available everywhere.
Important to note. And to add to you, Matthias, we bring AI with us. So the AI services will be on site and in the various offerings as well.
Very good news. Yeah. Matthias, can you give an example for the core services you've mentioned?
Yeah, I said, when you look at a customer journey with BTP, in many cases it starts with integration. So SAP Integration Suite is naturally one of the key solutions that we bring everywhere. The technical underlays, like a HANA Cloud, like a Cloud Foundry or Kima runtime, like the complementing services there, will also generally be available in all locations. Whereas we may have some smaller business applications or extensions which are more to specific use cases that would not be available in every location, which may start out in just having a regional deployment, once in the US, once in Europe, and once in Asia Pacific, for instance, and then rather move to a demand-driven expansion from there.
Sounds like a good plan. So now I put myself into the shoes of a customer, and customers, of course, want to know about the commercial impact. So is there a commercial difference or different price tag for BTP workloads running on hyperscaler data centers and the workloads running on SAP Cloud Infrastructure?
So for public cloud landscapes, BTP has a globally standardized and same price offering. So that means BTP on SAP Cloud Infrastructure is no different. So it really gives you full flexibility to choose, not driven by price difference or anything here. Just depending on your preference and needs that you are following. More, say, restricted offerings like sovereign cloud offerings come at a different price point. So obviously, these different qualities have a price and therefore also have a different price point in our offering.
All right. And as I can imagine, most of our listeners are existing customer base of BTP. So can existing customers migrate their BTP workloads from non-SAP data centers to the SAP data centers?
Absolutely. As I said, we provide full flexibility to the customer to pick and choose the providers, the locations of their need and choice. What I have to admit though is that there is no button press migration from one location or one infrastructure to another. So that would obviously come along with project efforts to move. And therefore, obviously, doing some thorough planning upfront where to land is advisable. But obviously, we provide the flexibility to migrate also from one location to another.
Okay, yeah. Fingers crossed that a lot of customers use CI/CD pipelines, then the effort is even a bit less.
Yeah.
All right. How can our listeners or customers can get started? How can they keep up to date around the development of all these data center topics around BTP?
So the starting point that I usually suggest is the Discovery Center for SAP BTP. So there you get to see not only the presence of services globally across the different locations, new locations, and all these aspects, but it also provides you with say meaningful missions and information on how to get started on BTP, how to build certain things, provides you with reference architecture materials and whatsoever, so that you can really use that as a landing place to inform. Looking to the future, the second pillar is, from my perspective, the Roadmap Explorer. That obviously gives you an outlook of planned regions of expansion. While we do not expect that we would really keep the same pace of doubling our footprint basically in the next 2 years again, there may still be one or the other extension of our footprint globally, so that depending on cases, on opportunities, and so forth, we would continue to expand also in some locations. And last but not least, I also have been publishing a couple of blogs on the SAP community, which have also been alluding to some aspects of our expansion. So that is also always a place you could have a look whether there was anything new coming. But these three in combination, I believe, would be your go-to places for keeping an overview.
And of course, this podcast.
For
Absolutely.
sure. All right. Thank you to both of you, Michael and Matthias, for facing all my questions, answering all my questions. So at least my questions are answered. Do you have anything to add content-wise before we come to the closing of the show for today?
I believe, from my perspective, we try to give a little bit of an overview of where we are and where we are going. I guess there's exciting offerings that we have, which fit pretty well to the demands these days. So really looking forward to the next developments and expansions here.
And we are offering a solution for Europe. And it's not just going to be an SAP show. We are also engaging with our partner and with our customer ecosystem on the open source level. So you can be part of the solution, and you actually have to be part if we want to make a dent and get forward with sovereignty for Europe.
All right. Thanks for this. So then at the end of the podcast episode, we always ask our guests for some recommendations. Can be a tech-related book, movie series, can be work-related. Just the stuff you love privately. Like if you say you're a big Star Wars fan, then just share it. So that's your last chance to address something to the audience here. Let's start with you, Michael.
Good question. I recently got into watching The Pitt. That's a show that just showed up on our streaming services. It has really high ratings on IMDb. And I was a bit wary because it's a medical show along the lines of emergency room, right? And we all have enough trauma in our lives. So is that really something you want to have in your evenings as well? And the show is actually like a real life documentary of a day in a hospital. There's no fluff, no intro. You're right in the action, real time, 16 hours back by back. And the twist is that the team running the emergency room is really good. And I didn't know this, but there is something oddly calming about watching people do their job really well. So even in chaos and the biggest trauma, there's still competence, there's structure, there's professionalism, and just watching experts operating at the highest level, making fast decisions, trusting each other, and executing under pressure is something I can relate to. For me, it almost felt like being in an incident bridge. Some cloud service has gone out, and we have hundreds of customers down. But instead of servers, we are talking patients here, and watching the team that knows their craft and is showing off a super well-run incident response is something I can get into.
Oh, that sounds interesting. I need to check that out. I usually like these kind of series. What about you, Matthias?
Yeah, I thought about it, and now while Michael was speaking, so what appeared to me was also a Netflix series called Better Than Us. It rather raises questions in an interesting way about AI ethics, in terms of, hey, how does AI play into our real lives? It's a obviously not a real story, but a made up story, but it could be very real, and it raises some real problems of usage of AI in our everyday lives. And so I really enjoyed it. On the one hand side, it was a fancy action series to watch, but on the other side, on the back side, also having these deep thoughts about AI ethics was an interesting view, and I can just recommend it.
Sounds very interesting. I need to check that out. So I like this topic of AI ethics. So, but I never heard about that. Thanks for sharing. All right, and with that, we're at the end of our episode for today. So ensure to check out the links in the show notes, check out our guest socials, and ensure to subscribe to the podcast to don't miss an episode. And as a small change, I don't say see you next time, I say goodbye, because this was my last episode being the podcast host. And with that, I hope you enjoy the future of the podcast. Thank you to you both, and bye-bye.